What's up, everybody? This is Jad from the Bliss Life. Today is going to be episode 3 of Chat with Jad, and I'm just going to touch on a few interesting topics that I came across, namely one, Canadian real estate. And if you're in the Canadian real estate game and you're selling properties, there's something huge that is happening right now, so you need to keep your eye out for this, and you need to be plugged in with your accountant. 2, just going to talk about selling covered calls. I've been selling covered calls lately on Palantir, and it blew up in my face this week. And I'm just going to tell you how I dealt with it and how I'm going to navigate this situation going forward. Because if the market does become bullish, I need to change my strategy. I need to stop selling covered calls. And 3, I'm just gonna coast through some news and see if there's anything interesting there for me to share with you. So the first thing is Canadian real estate investors, especially those who buy their houses and sell them, and they do it so often that they don't declare it as business income, but instead they try to say, oh, it's a personal home. I just sold it for the first time, and then 6 months later they're doing the same thing again, and they're like, oh yeah, it's my home, I'm selling it, it's a personal I qualify for the personal principal residence exemption. What the CRA is doing now is, apparently a lot of people got a letter at home. A lot of Canadians received a letter at home that said one of two things: if you buy and sell your home, you can claim the principal residence. But if you buy and sell your home often, then that is not a principal residence. You're running a business. And that means all of your capital gains will be taxed at 100%. It won't even be treated as capital gains, it will be treated as business income. And they're sending this letter out to people who have been buying and selling a lot. They're also sending this out to people who have been claiming rental income on their properties, and then they suddenly sold the house and now they're claiming principal residence exemption. So this might be somebody who rented out a room in their house, or rented out their basement, or they lived in a duplex and they rented out the top floor and they rented out the bottom, and they rented up the top and they lived in the bottom. And then when they sell the whole thing, they just claim principal residence. That's not how things work. And the CRA is now starting to crack down on this. So if you're in this situation, you really need to watch out. And I'm going to show the article that I just read from the Financial Post. I think it's going to be interesting. It's right here. And here they're telling you what you need to know as the CRA cracks down on principal residence exemptions. Stop that. So rental property, of course, is not a principal residence, so you are on the hook for that. And what's been going on is, here they said they're sending letters to taxpayers who claimed principal residence exemption in 2 years back to back, so 18 and 19. So that means they bought and sold a home in 18 and 19, which is very suspicious. And if you and they say, like, oh well, if you're buying a house with the intention of selling it, then you're running a business. You're not really buying a house to live. So that is, they're asking the taxpayers to address their tax returns and voluntarily review it, because obviously if these people get audited and then the CRA assesses them, then there's going to be interest, there's going to be penalties. I think it's more there's going to be penalties, not there's definitely going to be interest, but there's going to be penalties, and that could be nasty. So the CRA is encouraging them to come forth and do it. Because if you bought a house, if you sold a house in 18, but then you bought and sold the house in 19, did you really buy the house to live in it in 2019? So that's the type of thing that the CRA is going after. And then they're also going after, and I mean, they're giving a case here where someone went to court and they lost the case where they bought demolished, built, and repeated 3 times in 6 years, and it didn't work. The second set of letters was to the people who did exactly that. Yeah, they reported a gross rental income, but when they sold the house, they just said it was their principal residence. So either these people are full out clowns, where they rented out the whole house and they were living there, and they weren't living there, but then when they sold the house, they claimed principal residence. But you can't do that on a rental property. You can do that on a principal residence and like a cottage that you have, and if you're not using that cottage for business, then you can pick and choose which of the two is your principal residence for a year, or a series of years. But if you have a property that's rental property, then you can't really claim principal residence on the space that you're renting out. So the CRA is reminding these people to fix their returns. So and they will be following up by phone. So this is huge. So I'm happy to see, because a lot of people say that the biggest challenge, or the biggest reason why real estate is so hot, is because a lot of people have taken advantage of the principal residence exemption. They were buying homes not to live in, but they were buying homes to speculate and sell, to flip and sell. And in the meantime, they were just living in it temporarily for a year. And that really wasn't fair for everybody else that's been looking for a home, because they've been depriving people from housing stock when these people were just speculating and they never really intended to live in it. So all they really did was just drive prices up. So that is an issue that I take, that I'm concerned about. Like, if you're buying a house to live in, that's one thing. If you're buying a house to rent it out to a family, okay, that's another thing. But if you're just doing hot potato from one house to another, then all you're doing is just driving prices up. And that's not beneficial to society. The only people winning here are people with deep pockets. So that's that. Now, a big issue that I wanted to talk to you about with Palantir was Palantir has been down, right? The stock has been down for so long that I was making a handsome income, or a good income, on the side by selling covered calls. Covered calls are essentially, you own stock and then you sell a contract to somebody else and you say, hey, listen, I'll let you buy my shares at this price by this date. And to get that right, you pay me a premium. You pay me for that contract that I'm giving you. And it works out great. It works out fine as long as the stock is never in the money. So let's say you own the stock and then you tell someone, yeah, I'll write you a contract for $15. You could buy it by this Friday. Then in your heart that the chances of going from 12 to 15 is super low, and it's not going to happen. But somebody gives you something for it. They might give you like 3 cents per 100 shares that you own. So I've been doing that as Palantir has been making its downfall from the 20s. So I've been, it's been lightening the pain a little bit, alleviating the pain, because I've always been selling covered calls and I've been making good money off of it. But this week I got a little bit risky, and when the week opened up, it was like stock was at like mid 10s or high 10s, and I sold the covered call at 11.50. And when I sold the covered call at 11.50, what went through my head was this BS that's happening in Europe with Ukraine and Russia is still ongoing. This week, they're going to issue, the feds are going to raise the interest rates and give some guidance. So it's going to be very bearish. There's going to be nothing good coming from that. So I was just like, 11.50, the chances that it will hit 11.50 is probably low. Maybe it'll go up to 11.50, 11.75, and then it'll just creep right back down. But I was wrong. I was entirely wrong. And if we look at the stock right now, we see that at the beginning of the week, right here, beginning of the week, we opened up at 10.50, so everything looked mad chill. And I was like, all right, 11.50, easy breezy. But then after yesterday, when was it? Yesterday, the news was announced. First, what happened yesterday was the president of Ukraine gave some, speech somewhere or presentation where he said like the peace talks looked more promising because Russia started to warm up to what they're asking for, so it looked more reasonable. But then at the same time that afternoon, the Feds came out, they raised the interest rate 0.25 points, and they said there's 6 more coming. Bang, bang, bang. And all of a sudden, like, all the band-aids were ripped off. All the fear from the markets were just gone. And Palantir went nuts. It went from 10 to closing at like what? Yeah, 1170 almost. And then from today, it just kept going, and now it's in the 12s. So yesterday, I actually sold a contract. I mean, not yesterday, but the beginning of the week when we're at 1050, I was, I woke up Monday morning, and I was like, all right, yeah, the world is in a terrible position. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think the stock is going to go up at 10%, So I was just like, whatever, 1150, let's see what happens. And now we're here, 1232. So what I did was I rolled up and out my covered contract. So what I did was I bought back the contracts. So it sucked, but what I did was I initially got paid something like 12 cents a contract, or 13 cents a contract. And what I did was I bought it back from someone else at 30 cents a contract. So I paid more to buy back my contract. Then I turned around and I sold it. And I sold it up and out. So, I sold it at a higher strike price, and I sold it out. And this is where it hurts a little bit, because I sold it out until like May. So what I did was I sold it like for like 70-80 cents today, 70-80 cents at a strike price of like, I think it was $15, I think. I don't know, 15. If I remember correctly, it was like, there was 2 prices. It was 15, 17, and 22. And the 22 one was in September, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I just sold up and out, like out big time. And it kind of sucks because I realized now, looking back at it, that weekly income that I was enjoying just suddenly like disappeared, and now I have to wait and see what happens. Do I think Palantir is going to be at $15 in May? I don't know. If the market turns crazy, it might, but I really think it's going to be a slow and steady. But $15 seems very realistic when the stock is at 1230. But that's what I did. And maybe now in hindsight, when the market is starting to turn bullish, not sure yet, but when it's very convincing, then you need to start selling puts. That's what you really need to do. And puts means someone's going to come and put the contract in front of your face and say, hey, Jat, I'm putting this contract in your face. You sold it to me. I want you to buy the shares of Palantir at whatever dollars you agreed to. So imagine you're a mega bull on Palantir and you think Palantir is always, like, you would buy it at 10, 11, 12, whatever. You don't care. So you sell a put to somebody and you say, hey, listen up. Whoever buys this put, you can come back, put it in my face, and tell me these are the terms and conditions. And let's say I said I'll buy Palantir at $11 in June, but up to June. That means if Palantir is at $11, then the person who bought the put contract from me, they could come and put it in my face and say, remember, you said you would buy Palantir at $11, and here it is. Buy it. And I have no choice but to buy it. And what do I get in return for this? When I write this contract to tell somebody I'll buy Palantir at 11 from you, they'll give me money to do that, to write them that contract. So it's the idea is, in this situation, is that someone's giving you money and they're essentially being a sucker. So they're giving you money. Let's say they give me $1. then I'm going to hold on to that dollar and I'm going to do whatever I want with it. But that person who gave me that dollar is waiting for the day that Palantir goes below 11. Because the second it goes below 11, let's say they give me $1 and Palantir is at $9, then they're going to come laughing straight to my face and they're going to say, buy Palantir at $11, like you said in this contract, and I'm going to take that $11 you gave me and I'm dumping it. I'm going to buy something else. I'm going to buy Palantir at 9, you know, so they get an instant profit, you know, or they can do whatever they want, but they know that they can sell their Palantir shares to somebody for $11 and they're not going to have to sell it at the market price of 9. So they made a $2 premium. I mean, $2 profit minus the premium of $1 that they gave me. Then they're walking away with $1 profit. I don't know if I'm messing you up, but this is maybe the way I need to start thinking now. I need to start selling puts because I am a bull on Palantir. So I could sell puts and say, yeah, I'll buy Palantir at $10. I don't care. And collect those premiums. But then I'm always going to be on the hook. The bank is always going to follow me and make sure that I have enough cash, enough margin to buy those shares at $10 when it happens. So that's kind of my dilemma these days with Palantir. Like, god damn, Palantir just ripped it. It went from 10 in the last 5 days. I mean, not last 5 days. I mean, shit. Like, last Friday it was at 1186. It was only on Monday it went down to 1050. But yeah, it went right back up. But since Monday, 1050 to 1230, it moved. You know, it moved. And what, 1050 to 1230. So what is that? $1.80 profit, $1.80 on 1050. That's more than 10%. You know, that's 10, a bit like 10 and a half, 11. But it was a big jump, and I didn't expect that to happen in this crazy week, but it did. So that's why you have to be comfortable with those risks. And, you know, you shouldn't be counting your chickens before the egg hatches, you know? Is that the expression? But you know what I mean. So what else is there? So today I saw that there was a lot of other news going on in CNBC. Yeah, the war crimes. I've heard about that the US is accusing Russia of war crimes, and Russia strikes back saying, you, out of all people, shouldn't be saying that. I'm not going to comment. But big thing is stock futures are falling right now. As of Thursday, March 17, 2022, stock futures are down. So it's showing that maybe the 3-day rally is going to come to an end. I don't know. Futures, I mean, it gives you a good idea, but it doesn't really say much. It doesn't give you real indications. It just gives you a feeling of how the market is feeling right now, but the day can change. Like we saw on Monday, Palantir opened at 1050 and ended up being at $12 2 days later. So, and you know what? A real person who's not afraid, maybe they would have just wrote it. You know, maybe I could have wrote it. I could have said, yeah, who cares? I know it's gonna finish the week under 1150. Those are guys who are always edging, living life on the edge. But I don't think I can do that. And I didn't want my shares to get called because, you know, I've built them over a long period of time. I want that cost basis that I have, which is in the 20s, which is in the low 20s, to be a reminder to me to know how far I've come, you know? And right now, I'm down big time, dog. I'm down big. But we'll see. I know that it's going to pay off in the long run. And we'll just have to see what happens. And it's going to be a slow and steady execution. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking to steady stacking, you know, everybody buying their shares and accumulating their shares, not traders. I don't like traders buying Palantir. I want real long-term holders to be buying Palantir. So that's it for me. I mean, look, this is episode 3. It was a super light episode. I talked about the real estate game in Canada and the tax implications. And I spoke about the covered call strategy and the put strategy that I'm going to consider now. for my shares. You know, if you do own shares of anything and you want to sell covered calls, you should definitely know the risks of it. You should definitely know the pros and cons of it. If you don't want to lose your shares, then you shouldn't be selling covered calls, because that is a real risk. And yeah, you have to know what you're getting into. And you know, sometimes the income means nothing compared to where the stock price will be in 2-3 months, you know. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.